All right, so we're ready to sew the lining to the exterior, and this is kind of tricky. So stretch, do whatever you need to, get in the right mindset. We're gonna start this. So I need to find my center marks on these bags. Of course, I did them all in different spots. This one, the center, I marked here and marked here. And we are going to go from the top to the center of the base, and that's all we're going to sew for the first time. Now I'm going to clip everything in between. Flatten the zipper at the corners as much as possible, both when you're clipping and when you're sewing. Ugh. My arms are already sore from doing yoga, and I'm really out of shape, so I mean, they're gonna be screaming after I do this. I think I mentioned before having the seam allowance for the base on the outside and on the inside go in different directions. That's to help with this bulk at this part. So this is a lot of layers, and you can see why I had you cut back the foam. I've done it with the foam and it works, but it's needlessly difficult. Okay, so you can either sew with this side up, or you can sew with the other side up, and then you can see the seam that you've already sewn. And make sure you're sewing to the left of that. Now make sure you have thread in that matches the outside of your bag, because this is the thread that will be visible. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom, or if you want to have your bag the other direction, you can start at the top. And I've got to figure out where is 3/8 with this sewing foot. Is it okay? The right side of the R of the 4 on my foot. If you have a button that to push to keep the needle down, push it. You'll be glad you did. And you can see that I'm sewing to the left of the seam I already put in there. Now this first seam is the easiest one, because you're not fighting with the bag too much at this point. Oops, my machine skipped a stitch there, so I'm going to go back and over that again, because I do not want stitches skipped. You want to make sure you're sewing to the left or directly on that previous seam, because otherwise you'll have that previous seam showing on the exterior of the bag. You don't want that. Okay, up at the top corner, make sure you are pushing down your zipper. So you do not want the teeth ending up in your seam. I had that happen to me once and I was not able to salvage it. Yeah. I'm gonna back stitch here. Yes, you want to back stitch at the beginning and end of the seam. I don't know if I mentioned that. So now I'm going to continue clipping these seams together. Previous seam. Start right at the end of that and forward and back, and then keep sewing. Okay, and I am at my end point. All right, congratulations, you have sewed half of your inside and outside together. Okay, so now I've got to kind of pull this end part in a bit so that we can pull this part towards us. Okay. Okay, so it's kind of halfway right side out, so we can reach this up here. Okay, tuck your D-rings or your straps and your hook out of the way. And I've got to find my center mark on here. So with patience, this step isn't too bad. I'm not sure which I prefer, binding or this. Well, I like the finish of this better. I don't particularly enjoy binding. But binding's a little more straightforward because you don't have to basically turn the bag halfway, right side out and inside out, and all sorts of ways to get it sewn up. Okay, I'm going to do the third quarter of the bag, and then we'll be on the home stretch. Okay, where's my seam? Right here. Just pushing this down. I don't know if you can tell how much I'm muscling this bag. Pushing this left side down so that I can sew this seam as flat as possible. Okay, I backstitched there and clipped my threads down there, and we are down to the very last quarter of the bag, which is exciting. Ugh. Okay, and I'm gonna my zipper needs to be unzipped a little more. I'm gonna kind of shove this through a little more so that I can clip this final seam together. Okay, the last muscling to do for this, And then we just have to turn it right side out, which is not always the easiest. What is going on? Ah, my D-ring is bent the wrong way, so I'm going to reach inside and fold it the other way. There. Turning it through that last pocket is the final frustration. I just can't design easy patterns. So I started at one of these bottom parts. If you start at the top, then you'll be finishing at the top, and it's easier that way. I gave myself a nice, tricky way to finish. Okay. Last bit. Oops, I'm starting to drift. I'm going to go back a little bit. Make sure I'm to the left of my previous seam. Oops, drifting again. I don't want a crooked seam. Shoulders are sore. Okay. Just keep manipulating the bag to make it as flat as possible. I'm going to fold that back so it's out of my visual area. Might try not to get my hair in the way as I bend forward to see what I'm doing. Nope, skipping stitches again. Gotta go back a little. My poor machine needs to be serviced so badly, but my closest dealership is an hour away and super long wait times right now. Oops. And my backup machine is not as powerful. Okay. I can make it the last few inches. The last inch. My husband and I are trying to lose pandemic pounds, so we're exercising more, which is great. But I've got a lot of sore muscles. Okay, woohoo! Sewing is over. Okay, so I'm just going to trim these top curves a little bit. Just a little, I don't want to trim the whole top curve off. And pull the other top out so I can trim that a little bit. And these bottom curves look pretty good. Sometimes I trim them a little bit, but I'm gonna let those go. Okay, so now the final thing is to turn your whole bag through this little pocket. Mine has the added joy of being a metal zipper, so it's gonna not be fun to push through. But just start pushing. I'm gonna get these thick vinyl parts through first, so those are out of the way. And then just make my way through gradually, pushing more of the purse through. It's actually easier than I remember it being. Oops. This isn't too bad, it just takes several minutes to get it all through. But, oof, there. Okay, I'm gonna try pulling on this side a little bit. I feel like the end is in sight. The bag is almost birthed. It really does feel like giving birth. Well, a lot less painful at least. All right, we got it through. Now we just need to pull everything right side out on this side. Okay, your bag might be pretty wrinkly at this point, so I'd recommend ironing it, which I will do. I'm not going to skip the ironing for this step. But like I said, why do I design hard patterns? I don't know. All right, pull out the edges. Everything looks nice. Edges over here. And finally, I'm going to, oops, my thread came out. I'm going to sew up the bottom of this pocket. I just tuck it in about 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, just tuck it in a small amount. Where's this? There. And sew across the bottom. Okay, I'm going to tuck that back in like so. And pull out all of these corners. I find that with this method, you don't really need top stitching, especially if you give everything a nice press when you're done. But you can, if you want, you can top stitch. You probably only need a top stitch across this top part. But I generally just press it and the zipper. My phone died at the end of the last video, so I went ahead and I steamed the bag with my iron and got all the wrinkles out. So it is all finished, except for the final step of the straps. So I'll now show you how to do the straps.